Hello, this is Dr. Yamada again. In part two, I explained how to do the in-text citation using the APA Style 7th edition. In part three and the next video, I will talk about the rules of referencing. So after you do this in-text citation in your text, in-text citation is something you put a Q, the short version of the citation. Basically, it doesn't give you the entire information about for readers how to access that resources. So when you cite somebody's work, you add the full address of the source at the end of your document. So an example of reference section is like this. So this is the basic structure of the referencing rule. So we're going to go one by one. The first one is author's rules. After spelling out the last name, you put a comma and then you use the initial of the first or middle name. And then after the initial of the first name, you put a period. So for example, my name is Masahiro Yamada. Masahiro is the first name, Yamada is my last name. So you bring the last name at the beginning, separate by comma, the initial of my first name, period. If the author has a middle name, so in this example, Louisa D. Racebeck, Louisa, first name, D, middle name, Racebeck, the last name, Racebeck, bring it to the top, separate by comma, use the initial of the middle and the first name. And one thing I want you to notice is that you don't change the order between the first and middle name. Just use them as is in terms of the order, L, period, D, period. What if the manuscript was written by multiple authors? So first case is two authors. The rules are basically the same, but after you write the first author, you also separate each author by a comma. And before the last author, you use the symbol and, not spelling out A-N-D, but the symbol and. So in this example, as you can see in the screenshot on the top right corner, so there are two authors, right? So because there's only two authors, the last author will be the second author. So spell out the last name, comma, initial, after you finish the first author, comma. Before the last author, you signal by using the symbol and the same rule of the author. And when the number of authors are three, exactly the same rule. They'll spell out the last name, comma, initials, period. After you finish the first author, separate each author by a comma. Before the last author, you put and symbol. And this rule is exactly the same if you have more than 2, 3, 4, 5 authors. The only exception is when the manuscript has more than 21 authors. So what you have to do is, so imagine using the same articles, just hypothetically, this article was written by, let's say, 28 authors. Then you spell out, just as we learned, from the first and next and next and next until the 19th author. After the 19th author, put a comma and you put a period, space, period, space, period, dot, space, dot, space, dot. Then you skip all the authors in between after the 19th and then just write out the last author. So that's the only exception. Okay, so the next one is ear. The position of the ear comes right after the last author. After the last author, you put the ear name, that ear number in the parenthesis, and after the parenthesis, you put a period. Okay, so that's all. So it doesn't matter the number of authors. After the last author, you put the ear number in the parenthesis and period. Actually, the title of the manuscript is also simple. You just follow the normal English grammar. So you capitalize letters only for the first letter of the sentence and also the first letter after a period or a colon. So in this example, depending on the journal, actually they apply different rules. But one of the most important things to keep in mind is that you completely ignore the style or the rule of the journal. You follow the APA. So APA rules just follow the English grammar. This one is just capitalizing the first letter of the sentence and capitalizing after a colon, right? So you just type as is in this case. However, when you look at the next example, this journal rule capitalize the first letter of each important word, like COFE over here. Again, you completely ignore this rule. So you only capitalize C, but you have a colon here on this title, so you capitalize T here. So that's the title of the manuscripts.